Hi, students, and welcome to week 3 of an online learning. This week we're going to tackle Act 3 of Pygmalion. And before I go over what happened in Act 2, I want to go over what's happening um, as far as this coming week goes. As many of you who have been checking in with the Zoom meetings know, I'm releasing your stuff today, Friday, instead of on Monday, because many students felt that having the weekend to be able to get classwork done allows them more time to spread out their schoolwork and so they don't feel so overwhelmed. So I'm going to go through all the things that you need to do for Act 3, and then I'm going to go over some key details from Act 2. So the first thing I want to show you is on Act 3 here. I have the audio book again. I also have the direct link to Act 3. And in this act, it's going to be a tea party. And in Britain, tea and afternoon tea is especially important because that's your socialization. Only leisurely people had time for afternoon tea, so that shows your status and your wealth. And it also has a lot of customs and social norms that you had to follow. And so the play for like Act 3, they're all in Mrs. Higgins' house. This is going to be Professor Higgins' mother. And he asks his mother to help him with something. So when you read Act 3, um, it will go over like what he wants her help with. Okay? And I don't have like a direct film clip for this scene because Hollywood put in My Fair Lady, they like put together parts of Act 3 and 4. And so they have the tea party at a race, like a horse race, instead of in someone's house. But it is very similar to what actually goes on. So Eliza's going to be it's going to be like a bit of a time skip. So Eliza's already going to go through voice lessons with Higgins, and you're going to see like this is her first like foray into high society to see if she can talk like they do and act like they do. So that's the reading. Then the discussion questions, I kind of changed up just a little bit. All right. I talk a little bit about what's going on in Act 3. The first two deal with the reading itself. Then the last one actually talks about Victorian manners and how to conduct an English tea service and like all the rules and your like social norms that you have to follow along with in order for you to be able to function in Victorian society. So it's kind of a different history lesson a little bit. You might wonder when you're ever going to need manners for high tea. You can impress your parents by how mannerly you are. Um, my friends and I used to do it just for fun, just to act grown up because my mother would get out the nice china and we could, actually feel like we were grown up. Um, Embarrassing story there, but that's all right. So again, you're going to answer these 3 questions, and then you're going to respond to at least 2 of your classmates. Same rules as last week. Make sure that you're having at least 5 to 7 sentences that are well thought out, well written, and that you respond with good thoughts and encouragement and some nice responses to what your classmates talk about as well. Okay, you also have the Act 3 questions. Um, Most of it, again, is talking about like what social blunders does Eliza commit? So, like, what mistakes does she do while she's at this tea party? Um, if you don't know what satire is when you write something in a way that to point out society like a shortcoming or something that's not okay. So Shaw, the question here is like, how does Shaw kind of poke fun at society in this scene? Okay. Um, and then the rest of this is kind of going off of things that you already know. It's going to talk through some stage directions and things. This you're going to just fill out as if you were writing a play for it. It's kind of a fun, different thing to do instead of answering a bunch of questions. You're going to like pretend you're acting out a social blunder, okay? And you get to write your screen set and like your character and what they say and how they act. It's just very, very short, okay? And then you have to have some sort of visual to go with. All right, so that's the questions. And then, of course, at the very end, you have your Act 3 diary entry. Okay. A lot of you that are turning it in are doing a really good job. Many of them have been very funny, and I've enjoyed reading them. So keep up the good work when it comes to those. The last thing I want to go over with you is some things from Act 2. Whoops. I have to scroll back up because I've read through Act 3. In Act 2, we meet a couple more characters, and I kind of want to point out some really good sections here that are important to know. And Act 2 is a bit long, so there we go. Here we go. So we're at Higgins' house, okay? Laboratory is, I don't know, it's his house, okay? He lives there. He doesn't live with his mother, and he's a bachelor of like middle age-ish, okay? So we finally get a good description of Higgins right here that I've highlighted, all right? And I want to kind of talk about it a little bit. So he's not the neatest because he's kind of a workaholic, but he is like a disorganized chaos, yet he knows where everything is. He appears to be like he's about 40 or thereabouts, so like middle-aged, okay? He's wearing like a frock coat. This is kind of like not exactly a sweater, but a decent jacket, but it's not super fancy. He's like scientific. He's interested in anything that can be studied as science. So he's also kind of like scatterbrained because when it says careless about himself and other people, and he pretty much doesn't care. He's like, I want to learn things for the sake of science, not because he wants prestige or anything. It's because he wants to know, and he could care less what happens around him or what he looks like or how he acts. He also doesn't care about other people's feelings. They don't really register to him as important. He doesn't see himself as rude. He just, so this is the way I am. And I call it like smart person syndrome. He is a very smart person, but he has no idea like how mean he is to other people because he just acts in a way that's really kind of brutal. And if you watch the clip for Act 2, with Eliza first meeting him, the guy that plays him, Rex Harrison, does a really good job of just kind of portraying like how verbally abusive he can be. All right. He acts like he has really good humor, and then like if things don't go his way, he literally throws a tantrum, like a 40-year-old throwing a tantrum, essentially. He can get very irritable. Okay, so that's like Higgins' short version. And he and Pickering have been talking about the Indian dialect, and they've been working on some phonics things, and they're very interested in what each other has to say about phonics. And then Higgins' housekeeper comes, and she says, there's a young woman here to see you. And that young woman, of course, is Eliza. So Eliza comes in, and she's dressed as best as she can. She's cleaned herself up a little bit, but she's wearing a pretty tacky hat, and she's very awkward, and you can tell right away she's very out of place because she's from a very, very low social class compared to Higgins or even Pickering. But she's bold, and she comes into Higgins' house, and she literally goes, I want your help to be able to speak more genteel or more like a gentle lady, somebody of worth and nobility. And she wants that because she wants to be working in a flower shop instead of on the streets, because shopkeeper girls have a better wage, they're treated better, And so she wants to climb higher in her station. And she has some money that she's going to offer Higgins. And um, he kind of insults her. Not kind of, he does. He insults her a lot. And so she wants to be a lady in a flower shop. And Higgins is just kind of like, ugh, get out of my sight. But she doesn't give in. Eliza stands strong and she's just like, no, I've come here to pay. I want lessons from you. You said you could do it, so why won't you? And then um, Higgins and Pickering end up making a bet. And they, um, men, anyway, I'm not going to go there. Higgins and Pickering make a bet, and they bet each other that, hey, in a couple months, I can take this girl from the streets and turn her into such a fine speaking and acting lady that she could be a duchess at an embassy ball at the palace, and no one will know the difference. And they make a bet that they can do this. And so I'm trying to find it here, so sorry if the scrolling's annoying. Um, and during this process, when Higgins says, "Oh, this will be marvelous," poor Mrs. Pierce's housekeeper is just like, you can't just pick up a lady off the street and just take her in. Like, whoa, this is like not allowed." And it really isn't, okay, guys? Like, unmarried lady, unmarried guy, not okay. Very, very not okay in this society. They're very tight-laced, very rule-abiding, and people snitch all the time on other people. And so the fact that she's gonna live there is a little bit of a hard part. Um, During this time, Eliza also called him a balmy. I don't know if you got that. Like, she cries out saying she doesn't want to live with a balmy. In that case, she's talking about a crazy person because she's kind of insecure about like what's going on because he's pretty brutal to her. Um, Also, like the importance of the taxis and the chocolates and things, those are finer things in life that Eliza can't afford on an everyday basis. So to her, when she says, "I arrived in a taxi," she's trying to show them that she's not some gutter trash, that she's a woman, that she can take care of herself, and she's a woman of means. She has money when she can. Um, Higgins' ideas on women. That's something you can probably tell. He doesn't treat them the best, but he doesn't also treat men all that greatly either. But he especially thinks women are useless. And he really doesn't seem to care for Eliza because he'll talk about stuff and say things to her that's really kind of awful. Um, Also, towards the end, I'm kind of running out of time on my video, but towards the end, we meet Mr. Alfred Doolittle. And he's an interesting guy. So he is called a, well, his job description is he works hard at not working. Okay? His main job is to try and figure out the easiest way to survive through life without having to work too hard for it. And he found out that Eliza was taking lessons from this guy, and he found out that Higgins is fairly wealthy. And he decides, well, if anyone's going to get rich off of this scheme, it's going to be me. So he literally talks Higgins into selling Eliza to him for $5. Says, you know, if you're going to have my girl here, you might as well pay for her because she is mine. So again, men being men in this time period, thinking they own other people. Okay. So Higgins just gives him his £5 and gets him on his way. But Mr. Doolittle also kind of points out that he and Higgins are very much alike. And he talks about how he's one of the undeserving poor, meaning he's only poor because that's what he was born as, not because he wanted to be poor. And unfortunately, though, like, he doesn't work to get out of his situation either. So hopefully that helped clear some stuff up. Please email me if you have questions about what's going on. But hopefully you have everything you need to be successful. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.